Caribbean, there is this culture that if you come across an elder, you have to greet them. You have to say hello. You have to say good afternoon. If you don't, it's considered quite rude. And when I was traveling to the offices last year, I always used to see this older lady. And I always used to see her walking when I was on my way to the station. And so I would always like smile and say good morning because I'm just so used to doing that, right? And the first time I did that, the look on her face, she was so shocked. And so I just made sure to keep doing it because she looked so shocked, but also so like happy that somebody had just even noticed her enough to say hello. And so I just kept doing it because eventually it built up to how are you, how was your day? And the joy that was on her face every time I just took a moment to like acknowledge her and say hello made my day really like start off on a great foot. And also I just know that like she was probably really happy, whether that was the end of her day or the beginning of her day, I don't know. But I will always remember that. I don't go into the office anymore, so I don't get to see her and I don't get to say hello, which is really sad. I think about it all the time. I think about that interaction all the time. I don't even know that lady's name. So I say all that to say, what does that tell us about loneliness in general in our society today? The loneliness epidemic is always viewed as like a personal dilemma. You're not putting yourself out there enough, you're not doing enough, you're not going to therapy enough. But I feel like it's low-key structural and intentional for us to be alone and isolated all the time. Now, we all know that the loneliness epidemic has been linked to a number of deaths and concerning rises in mental health around the world. Apparently 1 in 6 people around the world experiences consistent loneliness. And Gen Z and the digital generation are the ones who take up most of those numbers. So I don't really think this is a personal failing, in my opinion. I think this is structurally set up like this for a reason. Because let's just ask the question, who benefits the most from this type of setup? Western culture was always built on individualism. It was always built on doing things on your own. You don't need no one. You don't owe anyone anything. This is all about you. This is about you building your legacy. It's just you and you alone in the world. You came into the world alone, you'll die alone. Everything is so like focused on you being alone, doing everything by yourself. And I think there is a reason for that. If you are more alone, you are more susceptible and vulnerable to marketing tactics that cause you to use external things for self-soothing and for self-healing. And they want you to do everything by yourself. But most successful people did not get there on their own. They had family, they had friends, they had people in high places. It's not what you know, it's who you know for a reason. It's because community absolutely matters in the grand scheme of being a successful person, whether that be in business, love, health, anything, right? Meanwhile, the cultures that actually do prioritize community, big families, strong neighborhoods, protecting and taking care of their elders, and also greeting strangers on the streets, for some reason, those cultures get labeled third world and underdeveloped. Now, I'm not saying there's not issues that come with having a more communal society, of course, but that's a conversation for another day. But those cultures almost get looked down upon. But there is more of a sense of togetherness in those types of cultures, a sense of community and love within numbers. Research shows apparently that in America, being independent and away from family and setting rigid boundaries is a sign of success. And whilst I will agree on some instances, because of course you can have toxic situations that you absolutely should want to get yourself out of. But the question is, who decided that the Western definition of success was the overarching overall definition of success? This is collectivism versus individualism at the end of the day. Personally, I am and have always been an advocate for collectivism. The sense of belonging and community, I just truly feel like is central to our well-beings as humans. I want to talk about how isolation breeds control and consumption. Isolation isn't just sad, it's actually quite profitable. When you're isolated and sad, you self-soothe. And I just want to preface this by saying I don't think that everybody who is isolated is sad, because I personally absolutely love my own company and I always like to be alone. But there is a difference. When you're self-isolated, you self-soothe, you can self-medicate, and you become more vulnerable to things that will help you fill the void or fill the gap in your life. Apparently, a 2025 study showed that financial strain is directly linked to higher levels of anxiety and depression. I think that's pretty obvious. And people will actually just turn down social activities because they're too embarrassed to tell people that they can't afford it. I've done that many times, and it's so disheartening and embarrassing. And so like, you just taking yourself away from people instead of leaning into and trying to like, not even necessarily get help, but just feel a bit more involved in your community, leads to bigger issues in the long run. The silence and the self-isolation molds into, well, I'll just buy food to comfort myself. Or, well, I'll just buy clothes. Or I'll just smoke. Or I'll just drink. I'll get skincare. I'll buy gadgets. I think the dopamine hit of buying something actually mimics the feeling of connection. I really do. You just want to feel something for the moment. The loneliness economy is so real that we now have AI companions to help people feel less lonely. People are using AI for therapy, and I'm not judging. Genuinely, I'm not judging. Like, we don't even take our friends to the airport anymore. We don't even want to inconvenience ourselves for the people that we love, and we wonder why we feel alone. So personally, I think the antidote is not a product. The antidote is connection, whether that be connection with the earth, with people, with animals. It is all about connection. It is all about you exchanging energies with people, exchanging energies with things that are also alive. If you are exchanging energies with outside elements, with nature, with like-minded people, with family, with friends that you enjoy, and I just really want to reiterate, this does not mean that I advocate for you putting yourself in situations that are toxic and detrimental to your health, especially your mental health. But I do think there's a level of isolation that allows you to be preyed upon when you're that vulnerable. And being able to have an energy connection or energy exchange with somebody, I think actually protects you a lot more from that manipulation. And lastly, I think loneliness and identity are deeply connected, if I'm honest. When you are in between versions of yourself, not necessarily who you are, you're not fully there yet, you don't fully understand who you are as a person or even where you're going, that is genuinely difficult for anyone to know where exactly to meet you, because you don't even know where to meet yourself. But this is not permanent, and this is one of the most acknowledged forms of loneliness that there is. It's when you are in the midpoint. I have a kit on identity flow state, if you want to check it out, in the description below, which helps you move through those ebbs and flows of life and helps you identify what things you can leave behind and what things that you can take forward. I truly started this channel because I wanted to foster community. I wanted to be able to speak to like-minded people, build a safe space for us to come together and talk about the things that are going on in the world. But I also acknowledge that having things online is probably not necessarily helping the problem. If anything, it's probably exacerbating it. So as much as I love the community I have online, I also understand how important it is to foster community outside. So I would implore you, if you do one thing today, just one thing, is to talk to a stranger. Talk to a stranger, even if it's a hello, even if it's a how are you, good morning, good afternoon, and just let yourself feel a connection that you wouldn't necessarily normally feel. The lady at the station that I used to say hi to probably didn't even know that she needed those good mornings, and neither did I. And that's what's so beautiful about it.